Raider Nation, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of the Raiders NFL Draft Podcast, and excited to be here live with you from Indianapolis at the NFL Scouting Combine. Rhett Lewis here with my buddy Bucky Brooks, who is always with me on our draft podcast, and of course, our distinguished guest today, everybody's favorite assistant GM here. We've got Champ Kelly with us from the Raiders. Champ, thanks for spending a couple of minutes here with us on what is a busy week for you guys.
Very busy. Rhett, thanks for having me. Bucky, man, it's a privilege to be here with you guys.
Let's talk about this. But first, we'll get to all the prospects that are get out on the field, and we'll get to Combine here. Let's talk about you for a second here, Champ, because, I mean, you're relatively new to the Raiders, just as, you know, essentially this entire regime has been these last 2 years. How did you go from Kentucky Wildcat to software engineer to now processing draft prospects as a talent evaluator? Tell us about your journey.
Very, very unorthodox entry into this space. You know, I came on the scene, you know, at the University of Kentucky. I played football there for 4 years, got my degree in computer science, decided from there I wanted to pursue a career and as a software engineer at IBM. But in the midst of that, you know, really decided that my passion was in football. And I did that through I started coaching this high school football team in Lexington Christian Academy in Lexington, Kentucky. And these guys really made me fall back in love with the game. So I would be at work, but I'd be thinking about football. And I was like, listen, if I'm going to do this, and my girlfriend at the time, who's my wife now, was like, hey, if we're going to pursue this, let's pursue it at the highest level. And so then it was years and years of sending letters and resumes out to try to get an opportunity.
So UFL, right? And then you break into the league as a scout. Was that your first stop?
Correct. I was United Indoor Football League to the National Indoor Football League. I played there. You know, then I ended up becoming the general manager of the indoor football team that I played for, the Lexington Horsemen, which was probably, you know, some of the best experience I'll ever have, you know, in this space. It's probably set me up to be right here today.
You know, and thinking about that, like, how do those experiences, because you talk about having to do it with not as many resources, having to kind of be a one-man show, how did that experience kind of shape you and put you in a position to do the things that you do today?
Well, first of all, you know, you had someone that believed in you, that championed you to allow you the opportunity. And everybody needs an opportunity to actually prove what they can do. And so, but you get into that smaller market, the Indoor Football League, and I was our broadcast department.
Yes.
You know, I was a receivers coach for the team. I did hire coaches,
Your talent
did
evaluation.
find and hire players. We would travel on buses and get back after games. I would go help wash the clothes.
Wow, yeah.
Did put sponsorship logos on the sponsors around the football field. So you did it all. So your hands were in every department. So you gained an appreciation for every different area of the organization. And so I carry myself with a tremendous amount of respect for, you know, every job that gets done inside of the organization.
Wow. I mean, that is a phenomenal grasp of all of the elements that make a successful team. And
Correct.
by team, I don't mean 53, you know, players on a roster. I mean, you know, team as an organization,
Absolutely.
right? Because that's what you and Dave and Josh are trying to put together here, right? And it starts at the
1000%.
top and it goes to the, you know, all the way to the bottom, and all employees are included. So let's talk about that part of it, the cohesiveness as it relates to what you and Dave and Josh are trying to do to be on the same page, to put the best product out on the field inside Allegiant Stadium week in and week out. What is that collaboration like?
Right. Well, you know, I think you hit it dead on the head. Like it is a collaboration, and there's constant communication.
Yeah.
Right. You know, their responsibility is to create the vision that we're going to operate in. You know, create the processes in which we're going to operate in, whether that's Josh on the coaching side or Dave on the scouting side. My job is to help facilitate the operation of those processes within the scouting side. And so, you know, I think for us in this organization is we understand that it's a people business, right? Right, we're only going to go as far as our people and the culture that we create, which is, to me, culture is just the collective decisions of the people that you employ. And so if you show people that you love them, show people that you trust them, meet them where they're at, pull them up to where you want them to be, then you have a chance to be successful.
You know, it's funny that you mentioned culture, because a lot of the Combine is not about the workouts that take place, but the interviews and just the interactions that you have with players. And think about the culture that you're trying to create down in the locker room. What is, like, a couple of the intangibles that you look for just in prospects to give them an opportunity to maybe be good fits in the locker room?
Well, I think if I was to, you know, tell you what we were looking for, it's more, smart, tough, explosive, good teammates who love the game of football. And so that's what we're going to be looking for.
That's a profile right there.
It is.
Yeah.
Smart, tough, good teammates, explosive, love the game of football. And these are the type of people that we're going to be trying to interview, trying to learn about, so that we know every aspect of their background, know every aspect of their aspirations, and then try to facilitate some of the things that they need to help them become the prospect that they want to be, but we need them to be.
And, and now we're here at the Combine, right? And that's an opportunity to kind of get to know more about the players as you try to put those profiles together of all of them. What is the most valuable piece of this event for you, for Dave, for this organization to try to get a better grasp on these prospects?
Well, first of all, I think I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the hard work that our scouting department puts in all season long.
Sure.
When you talk about, Brandon Yergin, our college director, and Dwayne Joseph, our pro director, and all the people within all the rest of our departments, they work year-round to try to gather the information that we need to make these decisions. And so when you come to the Combine, we don't start from a clean slate.
Right.
We have information. We come with the concerns or the information that we need, and we're targeted in our approach when we talk to players. And so it's very, very advantageous for us, for those guys to get as much information as possible, so that when we come and we interview these players, there are specific things that we're looking for, that we're looking to learn. So, for one receiver, we might be looking for one thing. For another receiver, it might be, the mental part. For one receiver, it might be the character.
Yeah.
And so we have a specific approach for everybody that we're attacking.
There's so much interest in the Combine and now in the NFL draft. Like draftniks, media analysts, everyone seemingly has an opinion on prospects and what teams should do. How hard is it for you guys to block out the white noise and focus on what's most important for the Raiders when it comes to evaluating these players?
Well, I think our charge as, kind of leadership brass is every decision is a Raiders decision, right? So blocking out the noise, it really doesn't come into play, because all we're trying to do is work our processes, trust our processes, believe in the work that we do, and understand that the plan that Josh and Dave had when they walked into the building, that's the plan that we're executing. And so, not worrying about the pundits or the people who don't know all the information. Like, we trust our scouts. We trust our coaches, and we know that our process would eventually lead to the results that are not only going to make us a successful team, but to make our fans proud of us. And that's all we want to do.
Well, Champ, I don't know if you knew this, but Bucky and I both went 32 of 32 on our first-round mock drafts last year.
That's right. That's what we do.
So
we're perfect.
If
we're perfect
you
when it comes
do
to
need to take a peek at any, I would just alert you to those. I think Bucky's already got one out. I only do one all year. So I'll let you know when that comes down, and we can collaborate if you'd like.
Rhett does his the day after the draft.
Yes, right after me.
He's definitely 100% there.
Yes, right after me.
Champ Kelly is here with us on our Raiders NFL Draft podcast. Champ, we love that you've given us a few minutes of your time, and I want to get to a couple of things here, because look, obviously we all know that quarterback at some point is on the radar here, with Derek now off to another team, and obviously there are quarterbacks here that we're going to be interested in. What do you look for when you're evaluating college quarterbacks? Like, what? I'm not going to ask you who you're taking or if you're taking one. We're not dumb enough to do that. But like, what do you find that is important when it comes to quarterbacks that are coming from college into the league?
I think because quarterbacks are coming from different offense, and sometimes you're not comparing apples to apples, because some of it is college football versus what we're going to be doing in the pros. They may never even get into a huddle,
right,
in college. And so as we evaluate quarterbacks, like it's, processing, it's decision-making, it's accuracy, but a lot of it is that intangible things that you don't always see on tape. It's the communication with a teammate on the sideline. You know what I mean? It's how he communicates back from the field to the coach on the sideline. Can he process what the coach is trying to tell him? And so that's why going through this full process is so important, when you're talking about adding a guy that you expect to lead your franchise.
And just real quick, though, like, even though, quarterback he's a perceived need here, like, you go through this process every year with the quarterbacks, right? I mean, like, for the most part. Now, it may be different in terms of how in depth you get on it, but, like, this is a process that doesn't just start when you need one.
I've been evaluating quarterbacks since I got into this league,
right.
16, 17 years ago, and that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Now, the reality reality of this is this process that we're talking about for the quarterback position.
Yeah.
We do this at every position.
Sure.
Right? There is no rest. You know, I may be trying to find the next best returner in Bucky.
Oh. Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm
constantly –
we're constantly evaluating every position group. That's what we do.
Yeah.
So in thinking about this, one of the important parts of team building is not only what the front office does and the scouts, but how the coaches take the players that come in and develop them. How do you guys have a constant stream of dialogue to make sure that the coaches and scouts work together to make sure that you maximize the talent of the players that you do bring to the building?
Right, first of all, it started by how it's modeled between Josh and Dave. They have complete cohesion, right? And so when you have complete cohesion and there's constant communication between the scouting staff and the coaching staff, there's a trust. Like, there's one common goal that we all have, and we all know what that is, right? And so we're always working toward making sure we obtain that ultimate goal. And so whether that's, getting feedback every week on the progression of a player that may be on the practice squad, maybe a progression every week on a player that, a young player that we just acquired that may be inactive on game days, but they're working throughout the week. And so not only does that player have a plan at the end of the year when we leave, like, because of the coaches, because of the scouts, like, we have a nutritional plan, a strength plan. We have a positional plan on what they need to work on. So it's not just, we have a study habit plan for every player that we talk about. And we don't just do that for the players, like we do that for the coaches. We do that for the scouts. Like, there's constant feedback and growth, and that's the benefit of being in a regime and a program, like we're able to offer here with the Raiders.
I'm also always curious because, Bucky and I talk about it all the time. While we can talk about arm strength and processing ability and accuracy of a quarterback, fit oftentimes determines success in this league. And, you obviously want to find the right fit. But within that fit, you want to see improvement. You want to see progression with that player, especially at the quarterback spot, where so much that you rely on there. What have you found in your experience, both on the pro side, right, and on the college side, as the most improvable traits or characteristics of a quarterback once they get to the league? Like, what can they get better at?
Right. I think, footwork is some of the things that a quarterback can get better at. It depends on the system that they come from. There's some ability to read and process. I think the command in which a quarterback has when they come in improves. Again, like I mentioned, some of these quarterbacks don't even huddle at all in college.
Right.
And so to be able to stand in front of, Rhett and Bucky and say, okay, we got ace left, 92 on 2, and then get into a huddle or get to a line of scrimmage and actually call the cadence, like, that takes a lot.
Yeah.
Right? And so they grow in their command, but it takes time, right? Right? It takes time. Rarely do you walk off the college field, jump on the NFL playing field, and have early success. It takes time, and it takes patience, and that's like, this isn't microwave quarterback cooking.
What?
Like, you got to put it in the oven and let it come out perfect.
And so that thing a little bit.
You got to smoke it.
I need to try it first.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Here with you on the Raiders NFL Draft Podcast. Rhett Lewis, Bucky Brooks. Man, that was fun getting a chance to see that. Like, that's the stuff that we love, and it's the stuff that, I'm sure folks at home that are watching this, like, just don't get a chance to hear that kind of insight from, behind the curtain a little bit with Champ on how the process plays out here with this draft.
I'm not going to lie. I was very surprised by the level of detail that he talked about. Not only the feedback that the players receive in terms of where they need to get better. You talk about nutrition, strength and conditioning, positional study plan, but how the coaches and scouts also get a similar process.
Right.
When you talk about the attention to detail and what is needed to be at a championship level, all of those things are done. But sometimes we want to skip steps. We don't necessarily fully go through the process. But to hear that constant dialogue, that constant communication, criticism, that leads to better development, and that's why you can have success at a high level.
Yeah, no question. And we were talking a lot about quarterbacks, obviously, because that is certainly on the Raiders' radar here in this draft, and whether it's in free agency or trade, whatever. But there's going to be a quarterback added to this roster just based on numbers, with Chase Garbers being the only guy that's around right now,
yes.
right? So we got to fill that room up a little bit, and they will. And when we talk about quarterbacks, I've heard you talk about it a lot. Like, you look at a guy like Anthony Richardson in this draft from Florida, the evaluation process doesn't start right now. No. The evaluation process, it might have started last year. It might have started this summer, right, when you get a chance to go see him in training camp. You get a chance to then watch him maybe in a practice live, right, at Florida. You watch him in a game at Florida. You've watched every game he's played by the time you get to the combine here,
yes.
right?
So there are a few different things when it comes to the process. And, Champ talked about it, but we'll expand upon it. So the way that it goes now, there's a list that comes out about the top prospects. That list comes out the end of May. And so what a lot of the scouts will do is they'll start the process of doing a preliminary scout. So let's just say it's a senior. You go back and look at all of their junior tape, and that gives you a preliminary grade.
Right.
Then you kind of build your visitations off of that. Who am I going to see? When am I going to see him? And those things. With quarterbacks, it's always important to see them live.
Yes.
Champ talked about watching their interactions with their teammates and coaches and those things. So when you have a guy like Anthony versus some of these other quarterbacks, you want to make sure that you watch them maybe a couple of times live, not only to see how they play, but to see how they get along with their teammates, their coaches, how they handle some adversity, how they handle the good moments. So now that when you begin to talk about them in December, this is who this player is. And then as you get closer to the combine, now you take the information that you learn from the fall on your school visits, the information that you glean firsthand in watching them, you begin to present that information, and then you set up a set of questions that you now can ask them in interviews to kind of dig deeper to figure out who they are, where they are with their football character, and are they good fits for the organization.
Well, and that's just it, right? Because you got to take advantage of your 15 minutes. Because that's what you get, right? I mean, like, you can't just come in there and be like, "Hey, how's it going? How's your mom?" I mean, like, while those might be nice questions, like, you got to get down to the brass tacks here pretty quickly. And so you got to have a plan when you go into those interviews, and that's whether that's at Senior Bowl, whether that's at the East-West Bowl, which of course we had in Vegas, or here at the Combine, or on the official or the pre-draft visit.
Yes.
The top 30s that we talk about a lot after the Combine. So there's so much that goes into a quarterback evaluation specifically, but really evaluation of any player that you're going to fill out a draft card and hand it up in Kansas City in just a couple of months. Specifically here at the Combine, position groups outside of the quarterbacks, who, by the way, we'll see Anthony Richardson throw and run, which, again, you want to talk about buzz. We're going to start to see that buzz build when this dude runs a 40 and does some of those agility drills in addition to the throwing. I mean, he'll tickle the rafters up there at Lucas Oil Stadium with some of his throws. Will Levis, from what I understand, is going to do some throwing too.
Yes.
C.J. Stroud is going to throw. So Bryce Young, really the only top quarterback that's not going to participate. So I'm kind of intrigued to see what these dudes look like in this scenario.
Well, I think the three guys that you mentioned that are participating, C.J. Stroud, Will Levis, and Anthony Richardson, this is an opportunity for them to show and prove that the tools and traits that everyone has been smitten by,
right,
that they're real.
Right.
And so let's break these up in a couple of different things. So C.J. Stroud, when you talk about him, the biggest question for him was the athleticism. People will talk about him being the most natural thrower in the draft, the way he can spin it, the way that he did it back-to-back years at Ohio State. There's a lot of people that feel great about the way he throws it. It's the athleticism, the improvisational ability, and those things. For Will Levis and Anthony Richardson, the questions are more about accuracy and those things. So you'll see the arm talent, but can these guys paint the strike zone consistently? Can they show in this workout, okay, well, they've made some progress from the last time we saw them in the regular season to now in terms of being able to throw with a little anticipation, touch, they can put it in the strike zone consistently, and those things. For Will Levis and Anthony Richardson, also those special skills. Because the comparisons have been for both guys. Will Levis has been Josh Allen. People have talked about Anthony Richardson more like Cam Newton. Well, let's see if they can put up some superpower type stuff where you see the athleticism, where maybe you can begin to envision those comparisons coming to light.
Well, and look, I think this is a big week. This is a big day for accuracy when we get to Saturday, right? Because there's no rush. Yes. There is no defense. if we don't see, I mean, there
If you
shouldn't
don't
be any.
see it now,
If we don't, you're not
see it
going
now,
to
we
see
won't
it
see
when
it.
the bullets are flying, right? So like you got to see those those throws come out, on time. Good mechanics, and then you got to see. Can't have any football sitting the ground.
Yeah,
at
well,
Lucas
I mean,
Oil Stadium.
I
And they
mean-
got to be catchable balls, and you got to complete.
They have to be completed,
Yeah.
and you're right. Like you want to get to the mode of like in pro sports we talk about in practices and workouts, the ball should never hit the ground.
Right.
Like there's a level
That's
of
it.
crispness to the execution that you see from the quarterback to the wide receiver. And even though these aren't your own receivers at home, I want to see the adaptability. Can you quickly adjust to who you're being?
Yes.
Because
Yes.
that can happen in a game.
Sure.
And we also want to see how do you handle the adversity that comes with all of this. Unfamiliar environment, different
Lights are pretty
receiver,
bright up there.
different
Yeah.
ball, like all the pressure, all the people watching. How do you
Right.
handle that? Because some of that will give us a sneak peek at how you may perform in these pressurized moments at the next level.
Look, and what we're not going to learn about these quarterbacks, we're not going to learn how they read defenses. We're not going to learn how they process information. And we may learn, like how they want, how the coaches that are running those drills and those throwing sessions want these routes to be run. We may see some adaptability there.
Yeah.
But we're not going to learn, some of those big pieces that Champ talked about, like the processing, like the ability. But one thing you can see here is interaction and competitiveness with the group, within the group. And we've seen that in recent years, seen guys, dapping up other guys that make
Yeah.
nice throws, or trying to, bring guys along that maybe have missed one, or going over there and talking to the receivers and, getting those guys fired up. Like this is where you can see some of those quarterback and those intangibles that you like within your quarterback to be the face of your franchise in this scenario as an alpha among a room full of alphas. So I think that part of it is intriguing as well. Let's move off the quarterbacks for a moment. Outside of that group, any other position groups that are bringing some real intrigue for you, Buck?
Tight ends.
Yes.
I'm fascinated by the tight end position. The tight end position is such a position that you can gain a huge advantage by creating mismatches. This year's class is terrific. You talk about Michael Mayer from Notre Dame, Dalton Kincaid from Utah, you
Yeah.
have Darnell Washington, the big tight end from Georgia, Luke Musgrave from
Luke.
Oregon State. You have so many guys with so many different playing styles that it's really like going to the ice cream shop and trying to figure out what flavor ice cream do I want to really upgrade my offense.
Yeah.
The tight end position offers all different styles and types.
It really does. Another position that I got my eye on is the cornerback group. Because
yeah.
I think it is as deep as we've seen in recent years. Remember, we had two guys go in the top 4 last year, with Derek Stingley going to the Texans, and then Sauce Gardner might just be the best corner in the league. Went to
Yes.
the Jets and had a phenomenal rookie year. And if the Raiders are looking in that department, look, if it's not at 7. Probably not going to get one of the top 5 guys, because I think we'll have 5 go in the first round.
Oh, yeah, they
it
will.
would feel like we're talking about Devin Witherspoon of Illinois, Joey Porter Jr., Penn State, Christian Gonzalez
Yes.
of Oregon, and then you get into like Cam Smith, South Carolina
Cam
as
Smith,
one.
Kaylee Ringo.
Yeah.
You have so many guys that can kind of fall into those categories. You have Emmanuel Forbes from Mississippi
Yeah.
State, who is a big-time ball hawk and playmaker, might be a little light. And so a lot of this, when it comes to evaluating cornerbacks, what kind of corner do you want in terms of stylistically? Do you want a big-time player that can play bump and run, nose-to-nose, that specializes in playing man?
Good class
Do
for
you
that. There's a bunch
Yeah.
of 6-foot dudes in this class.
Like, we didn't even talk about Deontay Barnes and
Yeah.
none of those guys
Right.
that are super long in size and in stature, the ball hawks and Forbes and some of these other guys. So a lot of it comes down to the coaching staff and the scouts working together to kind of figure out what is the profile of the corner that we want on the island.
Yeah, and so the cornerbacks, big time position group there. The offensive linemen are kind of an interesting one. It doesn't seem to be like a real buzzy position this year, where it was last year, like with Evan Neal and Ike Ekwonu. And, Peter Skoronski is a great prospect, I think, and
Yes.
has some positional versatility. You look at Paris Johnson from Ohio State, Broderick Jones from Georgia. You want to throw DeJuan Jones in there from Ohio State, too.
Yeah.
He's a mountain of a man. That's a dude that, if the Raiders come back around in 38, and you want to really continue to upgrade the offensive line and, build another cornerstone with Colton Miller over there on the left side, like that could be an intriguing spot for one right there at 38 in the second round.
Yeah, 38, there could be some guys there.
Yeah.
Even talking about Darnell Wright from Tennessee. A lot of it depends on what are you looking for. But you're right. It's not as much buzz about the offensive tackles, but the value in terms of how valuable they are to the team building will force teams to take them early. And so will there be some reaches? Yes. But it's a position that also has been proven that you can develop those guys if they have the right tools physically to be able to play at the next level.
Cody Malk, another guy that I really like, and I know you have him in your top 5. But he's a dude that has played all 5.
All 5, so versatility is everything.
Center at the Senior Bowl for the first time, I think. And then, was a tackle at North Dakota State, has played some guard. That's some intriguing stuff there when you get into that part of it. So offensive line, corners, and then I think just obviously speaking, the defensive guys on the up front are going to dictate the top 10 along with the cornerbacks. Talking about the Will Andersons, talking about the Jalen Carters. I not going to be there at 7 when the Raiders are on the clock.
Tyree Wilson.
But Tyree's probably gone. Keon White could be there, Georgia Tech.
Hey, Keon White is a guy that you talk about the buzz. The buzz could –
He's going to build a little bit.
Could build a lot after he works out here.
Yeah.
He's so versatile because he can play anywhere from outside to inside.
Yeah.
Plays hard. And, playing hard is a skill. And this guy is a high motor player who's just relentless in his attack. He is someone that certainly is going to have a lot of buzz.
And another guy that will have some buzz based on the workout he puts forth. I know most people probably didn't watch a lot of Northwestern football this year, but Adebawore from Northwestern could put on a show when the defensive linemen get on the field on Thursday. Looking forward to it. Any other prospects that are in I'm curious. I'll give you just one that I'm really curious to see. Quentin Johnston from TCU, big physical, tall, wide receiver. Maybe not in the Raiders' target area, but man, a guy that if he can show a natural ability to catch the football, dispel some of the issues with the drops that we saw. As a body catcher for TCU, he's got explosiveness that can make him real appealing to a team. He's one of those guys that I'm really interested in. And then I think about some other guy, like another receiver that could run, one of the fastest 40s that people don't talk about a lot is Trey Palmer from Nebraska.
Yeah,
we ran 10.400 in high
fast.
School. So
that's
I get intrigued by just like the actual the drills, like the 40, who's going to run that fast 40 at the combine. So there's some of that stuff that really appeals to me.
Yeah, you talk about the intrigue. How about Andre Carter from Army? 6'10" wingspan, a guy who had 15.5 sacks back in 2021. You talk about a guy who has the athleticism to be able to get it done, has the versatility that you always look for. He is someone to certainly keep an eye on. And Will McDonald from Iowa State. He's another one.
I like that one too. Yeah. All right. So we got our hands full here for the next few days, digging into some of these prospects, seeing what they do on the field. And then, of course, both of us will be back with you, Raiders.com, following the Combine with our top 5 Combine performances. So look out for that coming up for you next week, as well as our next episode of the Raiders NFL Draft Podcast. Thanks for tuning in here, Raider Nation. We'll see you next week.